against each other. And there are two extremes. The truth in the light of Buddhism is, of course, that freedom concerns the individual inevitably, whilst equality relates to society as a whole. So how to harmonize these two? If one can harmonize freedom and equality, then you will produce dignity. So we can see this fundamental problem in our Western society of how to harmonize these two extremes in order to obtain supreme dignity. Buddhism, on the other hand, teaches us about the 10 worlds and about the mutual possession of those 10 worlds, that Buddha exists even in those in the state of hell, and hell exists in Buddha. In other words, that though we may appear to be unequal and naturally different, we can all achieve the highest state, which is Buddhahood. Furthermore, Buddhism teaches us that the differences between us are of supreme importance. That cherry, plum, pear, and peach trees all look the same in the winter, gnarled and bare and rather ugly. Yet in the spring, each produces its own particular blossom and fruit, which, though different, are supreme in themselves. It is on this awareness, isn't it, of the supreme dignity and unique potential of each very different individual that the wisdom of Buddhism can create a true democracy. The perfect whole, which is both equal and free. And in a sense, it's the same as a body with its fingers and limbs and toes and heart and hair and eyes, so many different parts, yet making up the perfect, harmonious one body. So you can see that if politics, sociology, and economics are based on true compassion, always motivated by the determination to preserve and foster and encourage the development of the supreme dignity of each individual life through developing human life's highest state, then people will be able to give their own unique potential in full to the whole human family. And we will be able to achieve a truly happy and absolutely democratic society in each country and in the whole world, based on the principles which are there behind me. In the end, therefore, the spirit of the RISSHO ANKOKU RON is to create such Buddhist democracies in each country and ultimately in the whole world, based on the 3 pillars of freedom, equality, and dignity. So I'll ask John now to continue reading. We're at the top of page 31 now, left-hand column.
Emperors and kings have their foundation in the state and bring peace and order to the age. Ministers and commoners hold possession of their fields and gardens and supply the needs of the world. But if bandits come from other regions to invade the nation, or if revolt breaks out within a domain and people's lands are seized and plundered, how can there be anything but terror and confusion? If the nation is destroyed and families are wiped out, then where can one flee for safety? If you care anything about your personal security, you should first of all pray for order and tranquility throughout the 4 quarters of the land, should you not?
Thank you. So, emperors and kings refers, as you might imagine, today to leaders of society. Ministers and commoners are the people. Fields and gardens refer to our daily work. And the state refers at whatever level you like to take. That is to say, it could be a community, or a city, or a whole nation, or the whole world. So Nichiren Daishonin is saying here that the whole purpose of politics should be to provide a happy daily life for the people, a life in which they can feel thoroughly fulfilled because the structure of society allows them each to contribute to it. The frustrations of this life are very largely because people find it impossible to contribute in their own unique way. So Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism is defining a society in which the social structure is fused and totally integrated with humanity in general. Politics, economics, the sciences, art, culture, and so on are all integrated and in harmony with the lives of ordinary people, all aiming towards giving a fulfilling and happy life to each single person. So what do we actually see in the West today? If one takes capitalism, capitalism really views a social structure as a necessary evil. And therefore, they always tend to try to keep it as small as possible. And this goes to its greatest extreme, of course, in a military dictatorship or intense bureaucratic control. In other words, the will of the few is imposed on many. And it was against this that the revolutions of the 19th century took place. And as a result, there is a great gap between rich and poor, and between the educated and uneducated. So Adam Smith's original thinking was that man should be free, and that if he was left free, God would harmonize man's various activities in a very natural way. But in fact, things didn't work out that way. Looking at socialism, which aims to create a very large-scale social structure so that all people can share in the benefits equally. Yet, as we said earlier, the tendency of such weighty structures is to restrict the freedom of the individual, and as a result, bring waves of apathy and even sickness of the mind and frustration and violence into people's hearts. So it can be seen that from the Buddhist point of view, both capitalism and socialism are two extremes. And indeed, I believe that because of this, what we see today in politics in this country is a sort of wishy-washy compromise between the two, with all the weaknesses which are inherent in such compromises. So these, of course, are the human mistakes which Sensei referred to in his speech, which I quoted earlier. So what is needed? What would be the Buddhist political view, if you like? It is to establish, I believe, what may best be described as humanistic socialism, based, of course, on a true democracy. That is to say, firstly, the people would administer themselves, aiming towards developing each individual's full potential, so that each person can lead a fulfilling life. And secondly, the extent to which each person gives their full potential through the effort they make is what measures the reward which they earn. In other words, the extent of reward relates exactly to the extent of each individual's effort, which is, of course, the way the Gohonzon works too. So, of course, it's very easy to say, how on earth can we unravel what exists today and produce such a society based on these principles of equality and freedom and dignity of life? What sort of structure has to be created so that every human being's voice can be heard, if they so wish, and so that everyone can be given the opportunity to fulfill their lives? And my answer to that is that nothing is beyond human ingenuity and wisdom if The will is there to achieve it. We only have to look at the incredible advance in technology and science to see the amazing things which human beings can achieve when they set out to do so. Furthermore, even if the structure to begin with is imperfect, if an ever-growing number of individuals have such an aim to achieve such a society, the right structure will without fail appear. So, in the end, it's up to us and those who follow us, those to whom we teach about Buddhism, the Bodhisattvas of the earth, to manifest the law of life and the universe in our daily actions. And through this way, we will gradually lead the way in every field of society. Indeed, it's amazing to think that 3,000 years ago, when Shakyamuni Buddha taught the Lotus Sutra, this was what he predicted. That the Bodhisattvas of the earth would be the people who, through the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha state working in their lives, would lead the way in society everywhere throughout the world. Some people say that religion is a matter for the inner self only. And it's true, of course, that our prime concern is with our own inner self, isn't it? Through carrying out our human revolution or transforming our inner lives. But inevitably, of course, as a result of doing that, we, in our actions outwards, will reveal the wisdom of that transformation working within us, so that our thoughts, words, and actions in every field of society will be reflecting that transformation within ourselves. Inevitably, therefore, society is bound to change. For instance, as a small example, the members of NSUK who are students are struggling against a lot of difficulties at the moment to establish their own student division within NSUK. So what would be the primary purpose of such an assembly of young students? Nothing else but to shakubuku other students who will in time become leaders in their own particular fields, whether it be science or politics, or biology, business, or whatever. In other words, the Gohonzon will shine through from their lives into every aspect in the field they work in. Right.
It seems to me that when people are in this world, they all fear what their lot may be in the life to come. So it is that some of them put their faith in heretical teachings or pay honor to those who slander the law. It distresses me that they should be so confused about right and wrong. But at the same time, I feel pity that, having embraced Buddhism, they should have chosen the wrong kind. With the power of faith that is in their hearts, why must they vainly give credence to heretical doctrines? If they do not shake off these delusions that they cling to, but continue to harbor false ideas, then they will quickly depart from the world of the living and fall into the hell of incessant suffering. Thus, the Daijuku Sutra says, though the ruler of a state may have for countless existences in the past practiced the giving of alms, observed the precepts, and abided by the principles of wisdom, if he sees that my law, the Dharma of the Buddha, is in danger of perishing and stands idly by without doing anything to protect it, then all the inestimable store of good causes that he has accumulated through the practices just mentioned will be entirely wiped out. Before long, the ruler will fall gravely ill, and after his life has come to an end, he will be reborn in one of the major hells. And the same fate will befall the ruler's consort, his heir, the great ministers of the state, the lords of cities, the village heads and generals, the magistrates of districts, and the government officials.
Now here Nichiren Daishonin moves on to a new aspect when he says, right at the beginning, it seems to me that when people are in this world, they all fear what their lot may be in the life to come. In a gosho, which you know, called The Heritage of the Ultimate Law of Life, Nichiren Daishonin says, be resolved to summon forth the great power of your faith and chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo with the prayer that your faith will be steadfast and correct at the moment of your death. Never seek any other way to inherit the ultimate law and manifest it in your life. Only then will you realize that earthly desires are enlightenment and the sufferings of life and death are nirvana. So, Nichiren Daishonin says that much goes wrong with us because we fear our lot in the life to come. This fear of death and a failure to come to terms with it inevitably has a very deep effect on our society. The truth, I think, is that the riddle of death is not solved clearly or logically in most other religions. In one way or the other, this leads to either a feeling of apathy and resignation as to one's lot, waiting, as it were, for heaven after death, or to great fear and superstition, which lies very deep at the base of many people's lives. Either way, this fear of death, of the unknown quantity that death is, certainly breeds the three poisons of avarice, anger, and stupidity. So other religions advise turning within oneself, seeking only the inner self, in a sense ignoring reality on the grounds it is an illusion. Inevitably, such practices become very passive and exclusive and indeed egocentric. Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, on the other hand, is both inwards and outwards. We generate the power of our inner greater self in order to develop ever greater creativity and value in our daily actions in society around us. And furthermore, Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism explains the eternity of life, doesn't it? That death is, in fact, an essential phase of vigorous revitalization in readiness for the next life. And we all discover, having begun to understand the Buddhist teaching about death, that this removal of the fear of death from our lives, which of course doesn't happen overnight, but happens in a gradual way, and through this understanding of the function and mechanics of life and death's place in it, this has an incredible, profound effect on all of us. Somehow we find we're establishing a new set of basic values. Things which were important no longer seem so important. And things which before were less important become more important. To take an example, a businessman who really understands that life is eternal and who really understands the law of cause and effect will not pursue profit with ruthlessness and greed, perhaps killing himself in the process and ruining others. Instead, he will reach his targets exactly the same through developing the full potential in his own life and in those who work for him and in his customers. And as a result, all will benefit. So this is just one small example, but you can see that an understanding of the eternity of life and the true place of death in the mechanics of life can in itself, on its own, change the whole world for the better. So I really hope that this matter of death will be tackled by our World Peace Exposition and will begin to achieve such a change in many people's minds, whether or not they finally practice Buddhism.
The Ninno Sutra states, if a man does injury to the teachings of the Buddha, he will have no filial sons, no harmony with his close relatives, and no aid from the heavenly deities. Disease and evil spirits will come day after day to torment him, Disasters will descend on him incessantly, and misfortunes will dog him wherever he goes. And when he dies, he will fall into one of the three realms of hell, hunger, or animality.
Nichiren Daishonin here is really reiterating that inferior teachings can destroy the unity and harmony of not only society, but on the other side, families, communities, nations, and the whole world. In the end, it's a question, isn't it, of whether or not one's life is in harmony or rhythm with the universal law of life, which we call Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. For example, if we refuse to study, say, the highway code, we're more than likely to have a disastrous accident. If we do study the highway code, we stand a much better chance of traveling with comparative freedom and safety. And if every single person driving a vehicle studies the highway code as well as us, we really stand a chance to be totally safe. So a happy society must derive from the highway code, the ultimate truth. A happy society inevitably, of course, begins and ends with the smallest group within the social structure, which is the family. This is why families should be the foundation of a happy society. Yet, over the past 50 or 60 years, this country has seen the total disintegration of the family as a happy unit. Why? Again, I believe it's because of inferior religious teachings. My own parents rebelled against the Victorian concept of the family, which was patriarchal, moralistic, often hypocritically so, and very inward-looking and proud. And as usual, because of this rebellion by my parents and countless other people of that generation, society has swung to an opposite extreme. The family has become splintered and disintegrated and divorce-ridden and has no philosophical rock on which to base its growth and development. So this really is another aspect, isn't it, of our national karma, which we have to change through the wisdom deriving from the ultimate truth of life. Through the power of Nichiren Daishonin's teachings and practice, we can create happy, outward-looking, creative families. Each family as an open fortress of faith. Each family strong enough to withstand attacks from the devilish force from outside, and yet at the same time, its doors are always open to those who come in friendship. At this moment, I'm discussing with your divisional leaders this matter of the family, especially amongst the young people, so that I hope in time each member of our NSUK family, whether a woman or a man, young woman or young man, will learn to truly reveal their true and unique selves, their own unique ability to offer something to the family which others cannot. What a young woman can offer, for example, to the family of man is different to what a man or a woman can offer. Each has his own unique part to play, speaking in general terms, all leading towards the concept of a truly creative family. So what I hope is that through this movement amongst us all, each one of our districts will become a truly creative family in which parents, sons, daughters, grannies, grandpas, uncles, aunts, and all the rest of it are giving their own uniqueness, their own unique potential to the family as a whole. And in this way, without a shadow of doubt, this understanding of the true value of a family will spill over into our own personal families, and on the other side, into society as a whole. So gradually, I really believe without a shadow of doubt, through this movement, we can overcome another sad aspect of our country's karma.
The Ninno Sutra... Even if he should be reborn as a human being, he will be destined to become a slave in the army. Retribution will follow as an echo follows a sound, or a shadow follows a form. A person writing at night may put out the lamp, but the words he has written will still remain. It is the same with the destiny we create for ourselves in the threefold world. The second volume of the Lotus Sutra says, "One who refuses to take faith in this sutra and instead slanders it will, after he dies, fall into the hell of incessant suffering." And in the Fukyo chapter in the 7th volume it says, "For 1,000 aeons they dwelt in the hell of incessant suffering and underwent great pain and torment." In the Nirvana Sutra we read, "If a man separates himself from good friends, refuses to listen to the true law, and instead embraces evil teachings, then, as a result, he will sink down into the hell of incessant suffering, where he will experience indescribable torment."
Well, when I first read that paragraph, I couldn't help feeling it was applicable exactly to me. Even if he should be reborn as a human being, he will be destined to become a slave in the army. So, of course, we live in the age of Mappo. It's not surprising that we are so affected by the state of the world, filled as it was predicted to be, with what are known as the 5 impurities. The 5 impurities are the 3 poisons, avarice, anger, and stupidity or ignorance, plus conceit and doubt. So these impurities exist innately in everybody's life. And if they exist in many lives, obviously, the state of society is also impure, and the state of the age is therefore impure. Now, in the past, as we've already discussed, people relied on morality in order to try to battle with these poisons or impurities that exist innately in everybody. But moral codes can't change human beings, can't change their karma or purify their lives. They impose something on top of a life, but very little change occurs within it. Morality, after all, can even justify war. On the other hand, people today, now that there's no moral code virtually to speak of, or certainly no one's follow it, are beginning to worry. Morality has been rejected, but nothing has taken its place, has it? So without a shadow of doubt, the time is really ripe for an understanding of the ultimate truth of life. And this is why our efforts to shakubuku cannot fail to be successful, provided we make those efforts.
When we look at this wide variety of sutras, we find that they all stress how grave a matter it is to slander the law, how pitiful that all men should go out of the gate of the true law and enter so deep into the prison of these perverse dogmas, how stupid that they should fall one after another into the snares of these evil doctrines and remain for so long entangled in this net of slanderous teachings. They lose their way in these mists and miasmas and sink down amid the raging flames of hell. How they must grieve, how they must suffer. Therefore, you must quickly reform the tenets that you hold in your heart and embrace the one true vehicle, the single good doctrine of the Lotus Sutra. If you do so, then the threefold world will all become the Buddha land. And how could a Buddha land ever decline? The regions in the 10 directions will all become treasure realms. And how could a treasure realm ever suffer harm? If you live in a country that knows no decline or diminution, in a land that suffers no harm or disruption, then your body will find rest and security, and your mind will be calm and untroubled. You must believe my words. Heed what I say.
Therefore, Nichiren Daishonin said, you must quickly reform the tenets that you hold in your heart and embrace the one true vehicle, the single good doctrine of the Lotus Sutra. This is Nichiren Daishonin's final exhortation at the end of this long thesis. And he uses, as you notice, the word quickly. We must get on with it. We must get on with our human revolution, the inner transformation of ourselves. And we must get on with Shakubuku. The greatest civilizations in history in the past were in North Africa and in the Middle East, in India and in Central America. Now they're all deserts and jungles. The gosho says, as I quoted earlier, since the law is supreme, the person is worthy of respect. Since the person is worthy of respect, the land is sacred. We cannot make an impure land pure through science or technology, through politics or economics. Only the truth, the ultimate truth living in people's lives, enabling them to elevate their lives to the highest human state, will change the land. Only people stopping themselves from slandering and destroying life can enable the land to become pure. This is the message of the RISSHO ANKOKU RON, isn't it? So now the guest has his final say.
The guest said, since it concerns both this life and the lives to come, who could fail to be cautious in a matter such as this? Who could fail to agree with you? Now, when I examine the passages you have cited from the sutras and see exactly what the Buddha has said, I realize that slandering is a very grave offense indeed, that violating the law is in truth a terrible sin. I have put all my faith in one Buddha alone, Amida, and rejected all the other Buddhas. I have honored the 3 Pure Land Sutras and set aside the other sutras. But this was not due to any distorted ideas of my own conception. I was simply obeying the words of the eminent men of the past. And the same is true of all the other persons in the 10 directions who follow the Pure Land teachings. But now I realize that to do so means to exhaust one's inborn capacity in this life and to fall into the hell of incessant suffering in the life to come. The texts you have cited are perfectly clear on this point, and their arguments are detailed. They leave no room for doubt. With your kind instruction to guide me, I have been able, bit by bit, to dispel the ignorance from my mind. Now, I hope we may set about as quickly as possible, taking measures to deal with these slanders against the law, and to bring peace to the world without delay, ensuring that I may live in safety in this life and enjoy good fortune in the life to come. But it is not enough that I alone should accept and have faith in your words. We must see to it that others as well are warned of their errors.
We must see to it that others as well are warned of their errors. Well, I'm sure it's quite clear to everybody that this document, the RISSHO ANKOKU RON, applies not to one country, not to one race of people, but to the entire world. And in the final lines, the guest is determining to do Shakubuku. And I want us all today, everybody who has heard this lecture, and everybody who reads it when eventually I get round to producing a book on it. I'm not going to say when that's going to be, but I hope everyone will feel the same. We must Shakubuku without delay, for all the great reasons that are explained in this amazing thesis. This thesis, which has the answer to every single one of the problems of this world and the human problems that make this world up. So please, let's do Shakubuku. Let's spread these amazing teachings. And in that way, of course, change our own unhappy karma, and change our society, change our nation's unhappy karma, and help with our members everywhere else in the world to change the whole world itself. And before closing, I really want to give my deepest thanks in front of you all to Sensei, on whose lectures 14 years ago these lectures have been based. So without those, they would have been nowhere near so interesting, I can assure you. So in concluding this, I really want to join with you in clapping him, because he was the inspiration behind it all. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.